Well, good afternoon, everyone. And Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for those kind words. As somebody once said, my mother would have been pleased and my father would have believed them. But I also want to thank Chairman Xu and Candace New and the entire Chinese General Chamber of Commerce for bringing us all together today. This is not the first of these meetings I've been to. I've been to a number, and I think they really do go a long ways towards fostering good relationships, and it does result in actual business being done, which is beneficial to both countries and their citizens. And I did want to welcome Vice Premier Wang. It really is an honor, Mr. Vice Premier, to have you here today. 2 nights ago, I had dinner with your friend Henry Kissinger, who asked me to give you his warmest welcome. He's sorry that he couldn't come down to Washington today for that. I also want to thank Penny Pritzker, our secretary, who has done so much to foster commerce in America and with other countries, something we desperately need, particularly in the era of more technology that is what's really destroying jobs. We need to do more business to find occupations for all of our people. She has done an outstanding job at the Department of Commerce in building partnerships. You know, the relationship between China and America, the world's 2 largest economies, is more important today, I think, than ever before. We have always had strong cultural connections because America has long benefited from Chinese immigrants. But today, China is America's largest trading partner, and we are the largest partner for China. We both benefit from the other's growth, and there really is an enormous potential for that partnership to grow. And we should embrace every opportunity to build on that partnership, and that includes a bilateral investment treaty, which I think would benefit both countries. Of course, it's true that our 2 countries have had their differences, but we know that when we work together, we really can accomplish extraordinary things. Let me give you one example. Cooperation between the United States and China made the Paris Climate Agreement possible. Now, I know that in the wake of the presidential election, there's been a lot of speculation about whether the U.S. will fulfill our pledges made in Paris. Last week, China's chief climate negotiator, Minister Xi, remarked that no matter what the U.S. does, China will remain committed to taking action. That's a responsible thing to do, and the Chinese people will benefit from it, as will the world. Now, thank you. I can't tell you what the Trump administration will do, and in all fairness, they have to have time to figure it out themselves. What's said on the campaign trail, I should remind you, in America, is one thing. Actually carrying out the specific policies is another, as we all know. I hope they'll recognize the importance of the issue. But let me make one thing clear about climate change. I am confident that no matter what happens in Washington, no matter what regulations the next administration adopts or rescinds, no matter what laws the next Congress may pass, I expect that the United States will meet the pledges that the U.S. made in Paris. And the reason is simple. Cities, businesses, and citizens will continue reducing emissions because they have concluded, just as China has, that doing so is in their own self-interest. Bear in mind that during the past decade, Congress has not passed a single bill that takes direct aim at climate change. Yet, at the same time, the United States has led the world in reducing emissions, something that most people don't recognize. That progress has been driven by cities, businesses, and citizens, and none of them are letting up now. Just the opposite, as a matter of fact. All are looking for ways to expand their efforts. Now, I work with mayors and local leaders around the country, as well as around the world. And I can tell you that with very few exceptions, mayors are determined to keep pushing ahead on climate change because it is in their interest to do so. Their citizens are demanding it. We all want to breathe clean air, and particularly in the cities where there's more pollution than in rural areas, the demand on elected officials to clean the air and produce results is something that cannot be stopped nor fought. So it's important, I think, for Chinese leaders to know the United States' success in fighting climate change has never been primarily dependent on Washington. It has been dependent on mayors, CEOs, and consumers who are all taking action on their own. And that includes replacing coal-fired power plants with cleaner forms of energy. Over time, as more and more Americans come to recognize what climate change means to their families and their futures, by seeing the increasingly severe impact of storms, droughts, and other weather events, they will demand action, and the federal government will give it to them. But in the meantime, mayors and other local officials will lead the way. Of course, it is not just American cities and businesses that are taking action. Through my work as UN Special Envoy, I've seen the determination to act among the leaders of Chinese cities. During the U.S.-China Cities Summit on Climate Change just last June in Beijing, we announced a partnership between the Compact of Mayors and the China's Alliance for Peking's Pioneer Cities. Since that time, the Compact of Mayors has joined forces with the EU's Covenant of Mayors, making the new Global Covenant of Mayors the single largest and most ambitious coalition of mayors on climate change. I look forward to the participation of Chinese cities in the Global Covenant, which can help them build on the good work that they are doing through the Alliance of Peking Pioneer Cities. And in fact, if the Trump administration does indeed withdraw from the Paris Treaty, I will recommend that the Global Covenant of Cities, which includes 128 U.S. cities, seeks to join in its place. There are other ways also that we can strengthen the U.S.-China partnership, including in the financial sector. And over the last year, I've been honored to help lead an effort led by Mary Shapiro, who is with us today, to make it possible to trade and clear China's currency, the RMB, in the United States. And thanks to Vice Premier Wang's strong leadership, the strategic and economic dialogue between the U.S. and China this year yielded productive results, and it endorsed many of the recommendations from the working group. It is another example of how our two countries can work together towards common goals and to provide the facilities for private companies to work together that benefit both them, their stockholders, and their customers. And it will also expand trade and create jobs in both countries. It's been encouraging to see the progress China has been making in the financial markets, including the opening up of China's interbank bond market and the inclusion of the RMB in the International Monetary Fund's reserve currency group. My company is committed to supporting these and other efforts that are helping connect China with global markets. Last year, we hosted a series of events focused on China's One Belt, One Road initiative, which Vice Premier Wang played a vital role in leading. 2 months ago, I was honored to host a dialogue in New York City between Chinese Premier Li and the U.S. business leaders. And as I remarked to the Premier then, no country in history has ever undergone such extensive economic reforms with so much success as China has. Vice Premier Wang has played an instrumental role in that progress. He has shown great leadership, working to strengthen the relationship between our two nations, including serving as the top economic official representing China at the U.S.-China Strategic and Economic Dialogue and at the U.S.-China Joint Commission on Commerce and Trade.